Welcome to the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. I'm Jerry Kutz, and I'm joined by Bob Ferranti, our managing editor, and Nick Carlisle. Boys, I'm ready for some football.
I'm absolutely ready for some football, Jerry. I've been saying to Bob pretty much I feel like every show for the last 3 or 4 weeks as we get inch closer and closer and closer. We finally get to realize what this team is going to be. And I truly think that nobody knows what to expect. We could talk, we can hypothesize, we can use our better judgment in terms of what we heard behind the scenes and what we've seen with our own eyes and ears and talking to the coaches and players. But I truly don't think that anybody knows what to expect when Florida State goes out on the field tomorrow at 3:30.
I was talking with one of our subscribers, Paul Sickman, yesterday, and he worked for the Tampa Bay Bucks for 10 years. And, you're out there and you're going good against good. And then you get out there and you play somebody and you find out that good against good is not really good against good. It's bad against bad. But you didn't really realize that until you play somebody else. So, we talked about that last year ad nauseum, that until you play somebody else, you don't know. And I think we get a good test here with Alabama. I mean, they come in here ranked number 8. They're a 4-loss team from last year, but they're a talented football team. So this should tell us who we are pretty quickly.
I think with almost 50 new players, 6 new assistant coaches, 2 new schemes, offense, defense, it's a lot of new. And it's not just Florida State. Alabama's got a new first-time starting quarterback in college. And yes, he's a 5-star and he's got experience in that offense, but it's a newer running back group for Alabama. They'll be without a starting defensive lineman. They might be without a starting offensive lineman. They had 7 guys drafted. There's a lot of new on both rosters, and that's something that I think it's the new norm of college football. But too, we've kind of kicked around, should there be FCS games to start a season? Should you have a preseason game or not? Or do you want to just jump right into it without knowing enough about your opponent until you really hit the field? I'm sure coaches would have different points of view on it, but the new factor is probably one of my keys. Like, which team handles all of those components and that continuity between Florida State and Alabama? I think that's a huge factor on Saturday.
And new kickers and punters on both squads, I'm pretty sure. And with that many new players, I mean, all your coverage special units are going to have different faces. So thank goodness we have John Papuchis back, so there's at least some familiarity there. That's the one of the 3, defense, offense, and special teams that is returning.
Yeah, and I think that is an interesting thing, because I would not be surprised if Jake Weinberg has to make a big kick tomorrow at some point over the course of that game. Like, say Florida State gets in a 2-minute drill, they get down the field, couldn't quite punch it in. Is Jake going to be able to nail a 45, 50-yarder going into the half to hypothetically shorten let's just say a 13 or 14-10 game to a 14-13 game? Like, me personally, and we'll get into this a little bit later, I think this game's going to be close into the 4th quarter, and then Alabama's going to say, okay, I'm going to stop playing, put on the rocket ships, and just blast away. Is Jake Weinberg going to have to go make a big kick at some point in that game? Is he ready for that? I think you bring up a good point, Jerry. The continuity that having JP there as a coach, as a special teams coordinator, and Weinberg having a year under his belt, and then Mac Chimento having a couple of years under his belt as well.
And don't forget, you got a new holder.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pieces there on the special teams, but there is a degree of continuity there. And who knows? Field position could actually be a big part of this game.
100%. So last year we took those things for granted. As bad as that team was, we were brilliant with our specialists. And this year, we don't know. They were 4-year starters.
Yeah.
And so, well, anyway, They're just kickers and punters. They don't matter.
They're not. Well, they don't matter until they do matter. Until they become the best position group on your football roster, they're just kickers and punters.
Yeah, I'm being facetious, of course. You well know, but Jim Gladden makes the point that when you add up all the plays, it's about a third of the game. There's a lot of special teams plays. I mean, extra point play, a field goal play, a punt return, a kickoff return. They add up, and if you're not prepared in the game one, it can bite you in the hind end.
Do you think that I had a question and now I think I've lost it a little bit? It's something just related to like the special teams. Like, do you think that this group as a whole, like, do you think Florida State fans are ready to go back to a position group or like a kicker and punter that maybe there's some learning moments there? Because I mean, you had Alex Mastromano and Ryan Fitzgerald for 3 to 4 years.
No, they've never been ready for that ever.
Yeah. So, I mean, and remember that second year of Fitzgerald was really, really rough.
It was.
And then the final 2 seasons of the Fitzgerald Mastromano combination was infinitely better, and to the point that I made earlier, probably your best group on the team last season. But there were times where kicking was a huge problem for FSU, like in the last 4 or 5 years. Like that first like 2 or 3 years before Fitzgerald got there, and even while he took that starting job, are we ready to go back and see? And this is not saying that Jake Weinberg can't be an effective kicker, obviously, but it's such a confidence thing. It's such a above the helmet thing for kicking. He's got more than enough leg. He's got accuracy. We've seen him kick a bunch, especially last year. But are we mentally prepared for the fact that the special teams may not be up to the gold standard, or do you think it is going to get up to the gold standard?
Oh yeah, I think it'll get up there. But to your point, let's suppose Alabama's got and they will. They're going to put a bunch of 4 and 5 stars up there on kick block, and if they get there a little quicker than he's accustomed to, that'll get in his head. Once the bullet starts flying, even if he makes the kick, he's like, holy crap. I gotta rush this a little bit. I almost didn't get that one off. I don't know. A lot of things can affect you. And imagine they'll be saying some off-color things to him as well. So.
Maybe about his height. Weinberg's not the tallest cat in the world. No, neither was Fitzgerald, but Weinberg is definitely a tinier guy.
Yeah.
There were times last year in practice we were watching in the punting, and you had to do a double check because you had to say, well, was that Mastromano or was that Cimento? Because legitimately, Cimento can punt. This is not the walk-on guy who's just kind of punting and trying to learn. He's got the experience, and I think this is his 3rd or 4th year on campus. So he's done some kickoffs. He just hasn't done it in games. I think Jake had 1 field goal against Charleston Southern last year. So I mean, they did try to get him on the field a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's very new, and this is a huge component of again, if you want to stay close in this game and be in position to win late, like as Nick's saying, he thinks it's going to be tight in the 4th, you have to be darn near perfect, I think, on special teams, including the return element. Is that Jalen Lucas? Is that Makai Danzy? Who do we see back there? Who do they trust, right?
Yeah, I'm watching that game in Dublin. They had all kinds of, special teams miscues in that game. The opening play, the guy fumbles the kickoff. No, it's a kickoff with a punt, first punt return. And then going it right before the half, there's no time on the clock to speak of, and he fields a punt inside the 5. Yeah. And that's a guy that they depend on. And so the mental mistakes, first game, nerves, all kinds of things.
I also think it's an Ireland thing. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Kansas State-Iowa State game, but that game looked extremely rough too for a while. And of course, then you have the quarterback's father beating up the little brother outside of the stadium. I think, honestly, I'm curious to know, like 3 or 4 years down the line, if we can have a study done on the effects of Ireland and being that first game in Ireland. And if it just like there's some mental switch that just completely screws you up or screws you over, makes you play infinitely worse. Because I mean, it is an early start. You do start camp a week early. Like you do report early.
I have a firsthand account of that, and I think it's the Guinness. I'm just taking a wild guess here, but
well, maybe for the fans. I'd hope not for the players that night before the game. You never know.
The players' parents.
Yeah.
It's your clock is off, and I don't know, Nick. I think you might have something there, and traveling that distance is it affects your body clock a little bit. But be that as it may, I'm with Bob on Cemento. Cemento. He kicks a really nice ball. I mean, it gets your attention. Now, is he as consistent as Mastro? I'm not sure, but I have no reason to believe he's not. But boy, he brings to mind Ron Stark to me, who in the traditional punter sense for Florida State fans who saw him, I mean, of course he punted forever in the NFL. But those real tall spirals is kind of what we saw at a Stark, and we see those at a Cemento. Now, Bob, let me ask you, Nick. I mean, Mastro's Australian rules kicker. Will we see any of that with Cemento, or is he a typically traditional punter?
I think he's typically traditional, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Papuchis is going to have him roll out with certain looks. If they're overloading one side, okay, just remote Aussie punted to the opposite side. I'm sure there's going to be a degree of that. In terms of what's native to Cemento, I would imagine it's just a traditional catch, step 1, step 2 kick. And while I'm thinking about it, not to diverge the conversation, but I think one special thing about having the true freshman of Bruno Reus there is that if there is somebody that is maybe lagging behind, you have a guy that was a 5-star in high school at both positions, both punter and kicker. So you have a guy who may be young, he's going to lack experience, but you have a guy that's willing to be able to do both. So if Weinberg does start off slow, if Cemento does shank a couple punts, which we have no inclination to think that's going to happen with what we've seen from him, you do have somebody. It's not like you don't have anybody else and you're falling back on a walk-on kicker, right? You have a 5-star dude. I think Cole's kicking rated him as a 5-star at both positions. So there is that there.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 ways that happens. One is, the guy just can't do it and you substitute him. But more probably, I think that would occur if we get an injury to one of the 2 specialists. Because Mike showed with, Fitzgerald, he really hung with him there. He didn't just give up on him. And I think with coaches, I think what they're thinking is he doing everything else right off the field? And if he is, I'm going to stick with him. If he's not, if he's a mess off the field too, then you got to make a move, I think, is how coaches view it. And Fitzgerald was, as I recall, what he had done was he got influenced by Gano and tried to go to a 2-step approach, and he couldn't. When it went wrong, he didn't know how to fix it, and so he just went back to the 3-step approach. So that was, if I'm Mike, that's the proper approach to a problem. So it'll depend on, I think, on how Weinberg and Cemento, if they do struggle, how they respond to it. We'll make the decision for Mike. Hey, let me just say this. I would be very curious to see, in all the years I've covered FSU football practices, I was always amazed by how much time Mike allocated to special teams, a lot of periods. I don't remember Bowden putting that much, all practice time into it where the whole team is there doing it. And certainly I don't remember that with Jimbo, even though I did attend a number of Jimbo's practices. It always amazed me how much time Mike put into special teams. I wonder if that's changed now that Malzahn's here and White's here. Is there that much time spent on special teams? I don't know the answer to that question. Either of you guys care to wager, I guess?
I know Norvell has mentioned it after a number of days in camp that he'll say, today was a special teams emphasis type of day. And what does that mean? Is that 3-4 periods, and you're kind of blending it in? I think, again, when you're looking at 49 new players, and I had no idea until the other day it was exactly 49, but man, that's almost half your 105 roster right there. Yeah. So you've got new pieces, not just kicker, punter, holder. It's across your special teams units, your coverage, your return, et cetera. I think you probably need that time to figure out, okay, this guy, I can trust him as a blocker. I can trust him in different roles. And
early in the season in particular.
Man, I mean, and I'm not trying to knock, this is a weird situation, but remember the Georgia Tech game in 2020, because of COVID, Jeff Collins says we didn't really practice, I think it was field goal protection all that well. And it was a COVID situation. And Marvin Wilson got in there and blocked some of those field goals and extra points and such. But you can also chalk that up to first game type of issues, removing that COVID component. If you're not on point on these various very important special team segments, again with a lot of new pieces, you can mess up. I mean, you can lose points, either 3 points on that potential made field goal, or it can go the other way, and you're giving up field position or potentially a touchdown the other way. So you've got to be very, very good on special teams.
Okay, I think we have sufficiently hit the fly with the sledgehammer. Let's move on to another topic. What would you like to talk about? Offense or defense? Where would you like to begin? All right, I pick offense.
You pick. Okay.
I linebacker defense there for a second.
Oh yeah, the linebacker guru electing for offense. I mean,
I always say dessert for last.
I mean, you could go either way because you usually get to read the pulse of this FSU team, at least in recent years with our practice access. You kind of get to read a pulse on how this team, like what's going to be the struggles of this team. What are some of those storylines and narratives that are going to emerge? And last year, as we were creeping up towards Ireland, it was very clear this offense is going to struggle. Now, granted, we didn't know how much it was at the time, but that was our talking point. That was our storyline. And we knew that DJ was going to struggle. We had seen it. It's like, okay, it might take a while to get going. But this year, I don't, and it is in part due to the access, but it's like I don't know where the storylines are because there are storylines everywhere. There's so much to focus on. How is this defense going to adjust? What is this defense actually going to look like? Can Florida State actually run the football this year so they're not going to make Tommy Castellanos run like a chicken with his head cut off in third and long passing situations? So like we can honestly go anywhere, Jerry. Like we could go offense, we could go defense. There are storylines everywhere. So do you want to go offense? Is that where your heart is?
No, my heart is on defense.
I know.
But let me let's
throw out a couple questions.
The big thing to me is with offense is the offensive line, and that was the storyline last year when you got right down to it. And so this year, Salva just wrote our football analyst, Mark Salva, who played offensive line, he played 4 years here at Florida State and started most of them. And Mark, I asked Mark to write about continuity. We've been talking about continuity. And so Mark took on the task and asks the question in his lead, I mean, how important is continuity? And he kind of gets into how important he thinks it is. And how do you take 5 guys, even though they're veterans and have proven to be great players, for 5 different offensive line coaches in 5 different offenses? How do you bring them together and in 6 months get them to instinctively know what the other one is going to do against multiple different scenarios that come at you, like right now? And if as you read that column that's in the Osceola this right now today, it's alarming. It's sobering. We underestimate the complexity of offensive line. And Mark makes the analogy in there that, we always marvel. I talk with Kes McCorvey about this frequently, about how well connected he and Charlie Ward were, that pre-snap, Charlie would just look over at him because they would both see the safety where they expected to see him pre-snap. And they instinctively knew Kes would run a post or an out. And Mark said that exact same situation is required on the offensive line, to where he would look down at the tackle, Joey Ionata, and they would instinctively know, based on where the Mike linebacker was, how the blocking scheme would change. And Mark says you're underestimating the complexity of offensive line if you don't think that's a challenge. And so that's the thing, on continuity. And Mark wasn't being negative, but it was sobering. And I think it's a great read for those of you that like the intricate, football isn't checkers, it's chess. And for those of you who like that part of the game, I think Mark raises our attention to it.
Well, it's funny that you bring up continuity, because I saw a tweet earlier today that Brian Kelly said that LSU is expecting to play not 5 offensive linemen, but north of 7 to 8. And I couldn't help but chuckle, because who's there now. Who's there in that offensive line coaching staff. Yeah. It's one Alex Atkins.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, like the hindsight of knowing what we know now. And it's not, I want to be clear, it was definitely not all on Alex, the performance of that offensive line. They were just not getting production out of guys that they felt like they should have been getting production out of. But the concept of rotating offensive linemen, and maybe that would have worked 2 or 3 or even 4 years ago, but like to build the continuity on the offensive line in a rapidly evolving landscape where you're flipping your roster, not flipping the entire roster, but you're rotating players so much, it just seems like rotating your players is silly. So I wonder, Grant, I do think that there's better talent on this offensive line than there was last year. I think that's not a hot take whatsoever. But I'm interested to see how fast Herb can get this continuity on this line to mesh, because they're not doing this carousel. Hey, if you have a couple of bad series, Terrence Ferguson, I'm going to throw Andre Otto in there and he's going to play 2 series. And then that carousel that just did not seem to work last season.
And cross-training guys. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Washington as a left tackle, and he is who he is, who I think he was a pretty good player. And then Smith can't play, so you take Washington and move him to center.
Yep.
And now you've weakened 2 positions. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a football coach, obviously, but
yeah,
be
frightening if I was.
Anyway, I think this is an offensive line storyline that's going to have one element of the Alabama game, and it's got the other elements of how do things adapt and progress through the year. Nick, we were talking about this maybe a couple of shows ago. It's like one game is a measuring stick. It's not a referendum on a position group or a player across an entire season. And when you're opening up against a top 10 team, an SEC opponent, it, I just I don't want what we see of the offensive line to be, oh my goodness, that's the vision you're going to have for the offensive line for the entire season. I think we need
there
to
can't
take,
be knee-jerk. It can't be a knee-jerk reaction.
we need to take the positives, the negatives, what we see, take it for what they are, their first games together, and that continuity component. I think I enjoyed reading Salva's story. I think you will too as a reader. You know, it really is eye-opening. Some of the guys on the offensive line have tried to say, well, this is sort of what we've encountered at other schools. You know, Micah Pettis said at Ole Miss, he had some OL turnover. So it wasn't just the same 5 guys there year to year. Kind of makes it feel like this is the NFL, the professionalization of college football, that you're going to have a new starting 5, maybe on the OL year in, year out. But still, NFL has preseason games for a reason, to work through some of these issues. Whereas again, college football, you know, chooses not to, and you're going to have, like Nick talked about, those week 0 issues up in Ireland, especially with a wet ball. But across college football, week 1 is not the best.
It will be wet this weekend too.
Yeah. And
So,
week 1, how many week 1 games have we seen across college football and in Florida State's history, Jerry? You know, even those great Labor Day games, the Miamis and the Clemsons, whatever, they were not aesthetically pleasing games, offensively especially.
particularly that 1988 game right after the Seminole Rap, and we got beat, 31-0. Hey, you know what? The Mark makes this point. Whatever we see tomorrow, hey, how about that tomorrow? Good or bad, whatever we see, it will only get better, because he believes Herb Hand is, you know, a grizzled offensive line coach who's a good teacher, and they'll get better. His only fear is that they miss spring practice, and it's a lot to ask. It's a big ask when those 5 guys, most of them, didn't practice in the spring. You know, one thing I was thinking, I was talking with one of our subscribers, and he brought this up, and Mark didn't address that in his column, is that with the type of defense Tony White runs, where they can bring heat from a lot of different places, that offensive line has had to deal with that this fall. You know, it's a whole different look than they're used to. And I'm sure that has forced some communication that would not have happened if you'd have faced that same defensive front last year. So that could have helped speed it up a little. But at any rate, hey, the thing I like in particular about this game, referring to the offensive line, we like Pettibone, right? Luke Pettibone is one of the leaders of this team. He's the center. He's very experienced. I'm going to be watching him, and I'm not just watching him on the play, but what does he do after the play? Because my suspicion is even if there's no breakdown, he'll be communicating with the guards and the tackles as to, you know, it'll be, and if they're in a hurry up offense, it'll be subtle, you know, communication. But then I'll also watch him between series to see what's going on that sideline to help enhance communication. When Alabama's offense is on the field, that center it was rated by PFF last year as the second most productive center in college football. And he was number 2 in the running game. So Darrell Jackson is going to play against arguably one of the top 2 centers in the country on Saturday. And that's a little battle within the battle I think fans need to watch. Darrell Jackson's got him by about 45 pounds and 4 inches. And but this is an outstanding center. Can Daryl Jackson create enough issues to where they've got to use additional resources to block Daryl? And if they can, Daryl's done his job. And what do you all think about that matchup?
I think Daryl's going to have to assert himself early. That's one of my keys to the game. Not necessarily Daryl specifically, but that defensive line are going to have to assert themselves early. If DeBoer or he doesn't call the plays, I don't think. I can't remember the offensive coordinator off the top of my head. Maybe Bob can help me with that.
Grube?
Yeah, Ryan
Grubb.
OC.
There we go.
Yep.
I can't say this was with absolute certainty because we don't know what the script is, right? We don't know what the play set is. But you imagine that they're going to try to run the ball early. I would be surprised if they throw the football more than once in that first set of plays, right? They're going to want to run the football. Can Daryl, Deontay, Jason Jenkins, James Williams, whatever front they're in, whether that's 3-5, 4-2, 5-1, like whatever that is, like whatever front they're presenting, can they be disruptive on that first drive? That is such a key to me for this game, because if they even get whiff that they can be able to run on this defense, it's going to be a longer night than I think a lot of us are expecting. And I know you didn't really give a prediction, Jerry. I know Salva didn't give a prediction for the keys and predictions that'll be up on the Osceola.com later today. But I think for me, if this game is going to be as close as I think it will be entering the fourth quarter, Daryl Jackson is going to have to assert himself immediately. He's going to have to be the Daryl Jackson that we thought he was going to be last year and did show up a couple of times towards the latter stages of last season. It's going to have to be immediate, in my opinion. Daryl is going to have his best game, I think,
and it's
out of the gate.
It's an NFL game.
It is a litmus test of all proportions. There are going to be scouts that are going to be watching this tape because there are NFL guys on that offensive line in Alabama. Multiple.
Oh my goodness. That left tackle's a beast. The center's, highly productive. He's smallish. He's 6'2", 290. But, we were complaining about, Smith last year for us. I mean, this is not a big guy. He's, and neither is Luke Pettibone.
Yeah.
So now Luke gets a break because their big 345-pound defensive lineman is hurt and won't play in the game. So we get a break there in the trench. But the guy's coming behind him is a redshirt freshman, and he's a load. And I think you're right, Nick. I mean, I think he's going to have to start early and finish hard because he can be the disruptor.
If you want to think about it this way, this is his money game. Apart from like a Miami or a Florida or a Clemson, this is your money game. This 100%. Is your money game if you're Daryl.
And he knows it. I mean, and he came back for this purpose. He was going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds, even with the season he had, because he is the best defensive line configuration I have ever seen. I mean, 6'6", 335, bends like a linebacker, strong. I mean, but he just has to learn to play football, and he's got to be able to show that in this game.
Yeah.
And he'll be he'll be the first defensive lineman taken off the board if he does that.
Agreed.
And I think you got to play to your strengths as a coaching staff, knowing your roster. Like, let's say everybody kind of knows after studying these rosters and these players throughout an entire offseason. Maybe the 4 state coaches know that Alabama's got some better players, some better matchup advantages.
Yeah.
But how do you out-scheme the opponent? You can shorten it by running the ball and defending the run really, really well. What does Tony White's defenses do? They're a top 25 rush defense. those last 2 years at Nebraska, they were top 25 against the run. Is that scheme? Is that personnel? I'm not enough of a Nebraska expert to separate those two, but let's say it's scheme at least, and you've got enough personnel to defend the run. It's about it's about the matchups, but I think you can shorten that game and make it very winnable again late fourth quarter if you run effectively, if you get enough stops on defense, stopping that run and forcing a Ty Simpson to, yes, he's got Ryan Williams. He's got dudes at receiver, no doubt about it. I do think they will want to pass eventually, but I agree when Nick's saying early on, Alabama's going to want to dictate through the run, just like Florida State and Gus Malzahn will want to dictate through the run. So
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'll finish.
It just feels like run is very important.
I'm curious whether they can. Alabama this year, I just ran some stats. Jason Milroe was a big part of their running game last year. And when you lost Milroe, the second leading rusher was Jam Miller, who they lost. The third leading rusher transferred to Michigan. And they lost 90% of their production in the running game. 90%. I mean, they've got two running backs coming back who combined had 48 touches last year and for 200 yards. And then they've got some talented freshmen. And I have a feeling we're going to see freshmen.
Yeah.
So how good are these backs going to be in pass pro? They don't have a lot of receptions between them. And so I agree with Nick that if I've got a new starter at quarterback, I'm tempted to want to run it if I can. If I can't, I'm putting a lot of pressure on that kid because now they know they can't run it. And the other thing is this kid is supposedly, dual threat. He was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, and apparently he's a talented runner. So I'm wondering, Nick, if I feel you. I mean, my tendency always would be to run the ball the first series to let my quarterback settle in. But I wonder if Alabama doesn't realize, especially when Jam went down, that they're going to have to throw the ball this year more than they could with Milroe.
I would imagine so. If I'm a play caller, I'm probably mixing in my first play call. If it's not a straight up run to whoever is going to be that starting running back, I'm making it an RPO, read pass option. Because even if you get a look where whatever look they get from Tony White's defense where you don't like the run, it's still an easy throw for your quarterback. So if it's an RPO where there's an option, either a bubble screen or a throw to the outside or in breaking slant, whatever it be, you also have the option for the quarterback to pull it and run too. So you have that element of the read pass option. You have you have the running portion, obviously, and then the passing portion, and you just make it as easy as Ty Simpson as you can. The problem is Tony's probably going to understand that too. There's probably going to be a lot of showboating and misdirection and glitter. I like to call it glitter in terms of the fronts that Tony's going to be projecting out on the field there, whether they're faking coverages or whatever it be. I think I would opt for read pass option if I'm Alabama's offensive coordinator, but you don't feel good about it. They're going to have to throw the ball eventually. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge of their personal game plan is how are you going to wean this offense into the game? Not because it's not talented and not capable. It sucks because for them, there is talent everywhere except unproven talent at the quarterback position. If let's say that Jaden Milroe was still there and tailback. But let's just say that it was Jaden Milroe still there and he was playing on like a 7th year or whatever. You know what you have and you scheme around it. And I'm not saying they don't know what they have in Ty Simpson, but you don't know what you have until you see it on the football field, of course. So I think really like the first, as much as we can sit here and say that we can't take assumptions about teams based on one game or one moment, the first two series are going to tell us a lot about how much confidence they have in Ty Simpson, how improved this Florida State defense is, and whether or not this team can leverage momentum if they are able to get momentum. And by that, I'm talking about Florida State. Can Florida State leverage momentum? We didn't see it last year. When they had the chance to get up in games, they consistently went 3 and out and kept those other teams in the ball game. And the only person that they were able to stop that snowball from happening was Cal. So does Alabama figure out who they are and what they can do in the first 2 drives as best as they can? Can Florida State's defense present enough looks and get enough momentum to be able to stop that? Is that defense going to be improved? Are they also going to be able to leverage momentum? That's kind of like where I sit in terms of how the first 2 drives are going to look and what we're going to be able to grab from them.
I wonder how much Kalen DeBoer and his staff know about White. How confident are they in what White's tendencies are? And if they're not, then I think they've got to play a cat and mouse game and kind of feel it out. And I would guess the way that they would do that, going back to your original point, Nick, is try to play bully ball, try to run the ball, and see is Williams, for example, is he improved against the run on run defense? Is he capable of holding the edge? Test each of those guys. They've got a great left tackle. He'll probably be the first offensive lineman taken in the draft. Mm-hmm. And I guess you play to your strengths. What do they say? You don't call plays, you call players. So let's test that matchup, right? Let's see whoever it is that's lining up against the left tackle, let's see how good he is in run defense.
I think it's Jason Jenkins. If the math works out in my head how it actually is going to be presented on the field, it's either going to be James Williams or Jason Jenkins.
Yeah.
And either way, and maybe that's the solution, just run at 97. Now, not to say that Jason Jenkins can't stop the run, but he is coming back from a major injury.
Yeah.
That he suffered during the spring. So you either run it at 97 and wear him out and play to that injury, or you run it at 11, who has to prove that he can stop the run.
Right.
And then you play off of those adjustments. So whether that be GT pull or whether that just be outside zone to the left side of the tackle, whatever that may be. And I hope Alabama's coaching staff is listening to me give away all the keys of how to beat Florida State right now. But they probably don't know anything that I'm not already saying. But just to get ahead of that, I always laugh when I see that argument, because I have a direct line to Kalen DeBoer and tell him how to beat this defense.
Yes, so that'll be it. Alabama will, they'll pound away, test, and as will we. But let's move beyond that. We've got over there on defense, we've got the linebackers and the safeties and the secondary. How y'all feel about them?
I feel cautiously optimistic about experience and depth, not just based on what JP said, but I think you've got guys with 3-3-5 experience. Stephon Thompson, Elijah Herring has experience at Tennessee and Memphis, which ran a lot of 3-3-5. I just feel like this coaching staff knew they were moving beyond a 4-2-5 and kind of went into the portal and knew it had to grab veterans, transfer types. I'm not sure whether to buy AJ Cottrell is going to play a ton, right? He's on the depth chart as a number 2 linebacker. I know they feel good about him. Do you feel great about him against Alabama, or is it just we feel good about him because he's been reliable on special teams, you can project him on defense, etc. It feels, Jeremy, I'm kind of teeing up for you because you like the linebackers, you followed them through the years. It feels like a group that's getting better personnel-wise and filling out a now 3-man depth chart as opposed to the old days of the 2-man depth chart. There's still that question about what they can do on a game day.
Yeah. And we'll see on Saturday, right? I like the numbers. They have better numbers than they've had. They got more experience than they've had. A lot of game time, with Cryer and Nicholson and the guys that they brought in from the transfer portal. So that's all encouraging. A guy like Cottrell, you talk to a lot of our former defensive coaches, and they'll tell you that dependability is the best ability. And even though Marvin Jones was super talented, he was dependable too. And, I'm not comparing Cottrell and Jones by any stretch, but we beat some Alabamas back in the day with linebackers that weren't any better than Cottrell,
Yeah.
And if you look at Cottrell's high school stats, he's made a lot of tackles in his life. But what I see him as is that dependable guy that you can find schemes you want him in on, and if you can get 12 or 14 reps a game out of him, that's valuable. But I don't think this game is about Cottrell. I think he's just a side player. It's going to be more about Cryer and to some extent Nicholson and the others, Herring, Thompson. It's hard for me to figure Thompson out quite because his freshman, sophomore year, he was sensational. And then when he went to Nebraska, he went with White. He played a backup role. And I never knew whether that was because he was still recovering from the injury he sustained or if that's just the role he plays. But I'll be curious to see if, he's not starting, then when does he come into the game? Because he seems like a guy that you would want on the field constantly because of his knowledge of the game. But
I think he's an easy green dot guy if you're Tony, and I think he said as much.
Yeah,
I can't remember, Bob, if they said who's got the green dot, but I think Stefan was one of them.
It's funny. Papuchis was the interview on Tuesday, and he was asked directly who the green dot guy is going to be. Clearly, did not want to answer it. Right. He also kind of downplayed it because he said, in the NFL, it's very important. There's a lot of huddling. There's time. So you can have that discussion sideline to linebacker, headset. With the tempo of college, he said maybe the green dot is just not as important. I'm gonna maybe veto that because again,
I don't know if I believe that.
I'm gonna veto that a little bit. First game, new defensive scheme, new personnel. Do you want Stephon Thompson, who has a master's degree from Syracuse and Nebraska in this defense? Do you want him having the green dot? Do you want Elijah Herring having the green dot? It's going to rotate. It's not going to be just one guy across an entire game. I have thoughts about that. Is important to me. Who is going to be that type of coach on the field? I don't know, Jerry. Do you agree? Do you think?
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's important, and I would want Stephon with that dot or Herring, whoever have the most. And it could be, Cryer's a bright guy too. He may have really taken to this defense, and you think he can help us more against Alabama if he's smart enough, and I think he is. Put the dot on him.
I'm just not convinced. Like We've heard since the beginning of fall, oh, the linebackers are the heart of this defense. I don't know why I can't get behind that, but I just can't. Not because I don't think they're pulling the wool over our eyes. It's because there are so many factors at play here. We've seen that Harry's been able to be productive other places. Juice is coming off a major injury. Nicholson seems to just not be able to get it yet. He's still guessing. Athletic as he is, he's still guessing and kind of just throwing his body in a certain gap and hoping that he makes a play. Stephon clearly didn't do enough to win a starting job. There's not an or designation there, Bob, right? It was a 1-2 on that depth chart.
Yep.
And you're also hoping that Omar Graham can continue the form that he had later in last season now that he's got a full off season to be fully healthy. But it's not always like it's been sunshine and rainbows with Omar Graham either. That you could say that the linebacker room is the heartbeat of the defense all you want, and sure, maybe it's technically true. Like if we want to go into the anatomy of the defense, yeah, the guy that's going to be wearing your green dot is the heartbeat of your defense. But in terms of like the nuance that statement carries, in terms of, I think there was maybe some emphasis put on that. I don't know that the linebackers are going to be what makes this defense tick. And maybe that's a schematic thing where we're going to look at it on tomorrow on Saturday and say, oh yeah, the linebackers do make this thing run. I believe much, much more it's going to be on the shoulders of Earl Little Jr. and Darrell Jackson. And that is how the heartbeat of this defense is going to emerge. Maybe not from the anatomy of it, but I just have a hard time believing that the linebackers are that much better and they're going to have that much more of an impact. I struggle with that. And that's a concern that I have. I think even more so than the safety play, because Bob and I talked about safety play on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. For me, the linebackers are more of a concern because I just need to see it. I don't 100% buy it yet, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, and that's a good point where I think 100%, because past experience is a predictor of the future. And until they show us, they haven't done it. But here's the thing, Nick, on scheme may be why that they can become the heartbeat. Because if this scheme is as flexible as we're led to believe it is, where you're in a 3-3-5, but then a linebacker walks up and he's suddenly an end and got edge control, and then another series he's on a blitz, all of a sudden, boy, those linebackers can become really, really productive. You may be putting them in places where they become the heartbeat. And again, to your point, we won't know that until Saturday. Yeah. I don't understand the 3-3-5, honestly. I'll be studying it, but I want to see how White's operates. And that's what I'm expecting to see. I'm expecting to see safety blitzes. You got 5 defensive backs, and if you can, drop a linebacker into coverage and bring a, heat from other areas, you can get home free sometimes. You give offensive linemen ghosts to try to block after a while. And so that's maybe why they call the linebackers the heartbeat. It's that they need to be the heartbeat. So we'll see. I'm with you. They got to prove it. But I am concerned about the safeties as well. Honestly, that is my position of most concern. I think there's some issues of depth there, and I'm not sure that it's a super talented position on this team. I like Hussey, in terms of his talent, his pedigree. I do like KJ, but he's not starting, which is encouraging that Barker beat him out. That's encouraging. But I thought losing Hussey was that hurt. And Edwin Joseph, I like a lot. I think he has ability. But really, you're down to naming three guys at this point: Edwin, Kirkland, and Barker. Who am I missing?
Shaheem, Earl Little.
Yeah, well, Shaheem's a rover.
Yeah. I also disagree with you about Conrad. I think this is an addition by subtraction, to be honest with you.
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
you're not going to have his body there, but the Vegas odds of Conrad Hussey having a rebound junior year were not in his favor. Let's put it that way. The maturity was not where it needed to be. It was never going to be there. If I would bet, if we're going through alternate timelines, that we get to December and Conrad Hussey is in the portal. If he would continue on this football team,
yeah,
I would bet a lot of money that would have been the outcome. So I mean, I know what you're saying about the depth there, but there's definitely addition by subtraction. You're going to have younger guys like Akai Bates, like KJ Kirkland, and hell, Donnie Hybert. The Don father, you know, get him in there. Get him in there.
We needed Hussey not to go the direction he went.
Yeah, no, it's disappointing.
I mean, he was one of the top recruits we got at that position, and so
one of the most inconsequential flips in Florida State recruiting in the last 6 years.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We have not developed a safety that in this group right now. Edwin Joseph is in development. I'm encouraged by him. I like KJ. I like the fact that Barker's, at the top of the depth chart. But that's three guys, and that is a physical position. Wouldn't surprise me if they don't take a corner or somebody and try to get them. They may have to.
Yeah, you may start looking at freshmen. Again, Mike Norvell said on Monday, at some point they're going to get to double-digit freshmen who are going to be contributors and be impactful. You start to wonder, is a Max Redmond going to develop at that position, safety? Is it Antonio Cromartie Jr.? Is there Jerry, like you're saying, is there a younger corner goes to safety? I'm not saying Howard could be an option once he gets back healthy. I mean, there are some options. None of them are guys that you feel are dependable yet.
Well, the one guy that I like, Bob, I forgot his name. I tried to mention it to you yesterday. He was the corner, 6'2", 195-pound corner.
We're talking about Quindarius, and I think coming out of high school, Q was a guy we weren't sure what position he was coming out of high school. We just said athlete, sign him and figure it out. Yes, he could be a corner. He could be a safety. There was even some discussion. I think he could have even been a linebacker. So possible, very possible. That's how they're moving pieces around on the board to make it work.
And if Shaheem, had an epiphany and became engaged, that would be a big solution there too. But Shaheem has just had a lot of hope for him, but he's struggled, and so hopefully Shaheem will bring it this weekend and show us that he's the guy. But that's my fear. Not fear, concern. At any rate, I think what you've got in Alabama is a team that's got, some really good receivers, and where they lost most of the rushing productivity, they've brought back almost 2/3 of the receiving productivity. And so that'll be a test for our secondary. There's some very good wide receivers there. And to me, that if we don't get pressure on that quarterback, it'll be a very difficult day. So if we can disrupt him that is a high priority on disrupting him. And that's what Tony White's defenses are noted for doing. And Alabama has struggled with pass protection. So, that's a game within the game.
Before we wrap up, do you guys want to give? I know you don't want to give a prediction, Jerry. Bob, do you want to give a prediction, or do you want to save it for the story? Because we've hit the hour mark here. Should wrap it up as best we can, unless there's any strong thoughts that need to be brought up. I
have one strong thought.
Okay, one strong thought.
We need to promote the Osceola.
Okay,
we've got a tremendous 30% discount going right now through the Alabama game. And with it, you get 30% off, but you also get a $25 gift card with our sponsor, Alumni Hall. It can be used on in-store or online purchases, just as like cash. So it's a really great deal. When you look at I go online and I see a shirt I really like and I see the price tag and I go, it's a little more than I want to spend. But when I got that $25 gift certificate in my pocket, it makes it easier to make the purchase. So I encourage you, go online, subscribe to the Osceola, get that $25 gift card. And because after the Alabama game, it'll be gone.
No. All right. Any prediction, Bob? Any score prediction? Do you want to give it away? Because I have mine.
I know you got yours. Hey, I've been saying this across the full off season. I want Florida State football to be fun again for the fans. Whether you're
that's not a score. Stop pretexting it. That's not a score, Bob. I want numbers. Give me numbers. The fans want numbers.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
No. I want booze right now. I need numbers.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but I think Alabama, you feel better about a lot of Alabama's positives versus Florida State. So I think Alabama wins this, say, 31-23, something in that neighborhood. But I'm with you, close, late, fun game, fourth quarter. I think Florida State does enough to feel really, really good about this game. But then you take those positives and you got a lot of work to do going into week 2. You get the bye week. You get really rolling into the meat of that schedule after these 2 guarantee games. Again, let me go back to the fun component. Florida State football wasn't fun in 2024. It needs to be fun in 2025 for you as a fan, for us as writers, for us to be having good conversations about this program. I think the fun factor needs to come back with the offensive scheme, with the defensive scheme too. If they're flying around, showing energy and playing physical, that makes you feel great and feel proud. Yes, you want wins, but you can feel pride through the hard fought losses too. That's my fun spiel.
Okay, that's your fun. I when you started, I thought we were going to get like a 14, like Alabama's going to cover that spread. So we actually both have Florida State covering because I think it's going to be a 31-20 game. I think Alabama's going to take it home in the fourth quarter. I would not be surprised if this game's tied at halftime. Close third quarter, but the better team is just going to emerge in the fourth quarter, and the better team is Alabama, unless we are shown otherwise. So I say 31-20. Bob says 31-23. We're relatively on the same page, but we both have Florida State covering. So, Jerry, take us home.
I'll do that. Hey, I hope everybody will visit our sponsor, Alumni Hall, if you're in town this weekend. Stop by the store. If not, visit the site, Alumni Hall, and they've been great to us, and especially offering this $25 gift certificate. I just really appreciate them and want our loyal listeners to understand how much they're doing for us. Okay, I am not making any predictions because I have yet to lay eyes on the team, and until I do, I just can't. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend. A lot of stuff going on tonight. I'm going to be down in College Town. They've got an 80s, Spank the 80s, and it's one of the best cover bands in the country, apparently, for 80s music. So if you're down in College Town tonight, catch up with me. We'll be at Bowden's this evening as well. And then tomorrow morning, Bert Kreitzer is going to be at Madison Social bartending, and that'll be fun too. So I plan to be there in the morning, and then we'll be get serious about getting in the stadium early. And let me encourage you all, if you have not downloaded your tickets to your wallet and I'm stuck in line behind you, I'm going to be furious.
There you go. There you go. Good
Thank
deal.
you all. Thank you. And we're going to take it out.